People in the Fever were like, y'all.
That's not my point. There's a lot of other going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit
like
going
it's
on
a lot.
around there.
It's a lot. Yeah. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Remember when Sheryl Swoopes said this? DeWanna Bonner just ended her 6-month Twitter silence, and she didn't come back with a simple, "Hey, I'm back" post. No, she returned with a statement so powerful that it sent shockwaves through the entire WNBA. Not only is she officially joining the Indiana Fever, but she's also tearing apart one of the most tired and baseless narratives in the league. The idea that Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever fans are toxic. That narrative? Destroyed.
This WNBA offseason killed a lot of dumbass narratives, right? It really did. And I hope they're gone for good. And I hope we spend so much less time discussing nonsense. But I think we've seen it stamped out this offseason. And one of those narratives was people wouldn't want to go to the Fever because of the Fever fan base.
You might be wondering, wait, isn't this the team that everyone loves to hate? The one players are supposedly avoiding? Well, Bonner isn't having it. She saw the ridiculous from the so-called legend, Sheryl Swoopes, the endless social media debates, and the tired talking points. And instead of staying quiet, she decided to set the record straight.
To all the crazy people on social media calling her every name under the sun because she chose to play in Indiana. These are the same people that are like, oh, she'll never play in Indiana for obvious reasons. And she went and defended the Indiana fans and was like, talking about... She was basically like talking positively about the fans that were interacting with her positively, and was responding to one of the crazy posts about her being like, I'm getting screenshots of things you were saying about me. Can you just stop?
Picture this. Bonner scrolling through her phone, probably enjoying a quiet moment, when she stumbles upon yet another round of misinformation. Fans questioning why she'd sign with Indiana. Analysts still clinging to the outdated idea that no one wants to play for the Fever. Instead of rolling her eyes and ignoring it, Bonner did something much more powerful.
It goes to show you that I think hopefully all that stuff has been put in the rear view. And of course, Bonner is a pro.
She responded. And not just with a clapback, she obliterated the conversation with one perfectly crafted tweet. She didn't just defend herself, she went all in for Indiana Fever fans. She basically said, "Y'all are loud, passionate, and real. That's not toxic, that's what real fandom looks like." And that was all it took.
I don't get on here often because this app is insanely too much sometimes. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all the love I've received so far. Deaf, not unnoticed. The love is real.
But she didn't stop there. She called out the hypocrisy, exposing the double standard in how different fan bases are treated. How come when other teams' fans show passion, it's called support, but when Indiana Fever fans do the same, it's suddenly a problem? Why is it that when the Fever start winning and gaining national attention, the haters suddenly have a problem with the team's supporters? Bonner wasn't just making a personal statement. She was calling out the league-wide bias that has followed Indiana since Caitlin Clark arrived.
She's gone online for 2 times. One is to call out the crazy people attacking her right now because she joined the Fever.
This isn't just about fan reactions. It's about respect, something that Indiana Fever fans and their players have been denied for far too long. And Bonner? She's done letting the lies slide. What makes this even more impactful is that Bonner isn't just some young player looking for attention. She's a legend, a multi-time WNBA champion, and one of the most respected names in the game. When she speaks, the entire league listens. This isn't just an ordinary player venting on social media. This is a seasoned veteran, someone who has played through eras of WNBA history, stepping up to call out the nonsense and defend her new team.
You know, Fever fans are probably starving for that. And I think seeing the validation of the players choosing their team.
Bonner made it clear that Indiana isn't some struggling franchise barely trying to stay relevant. With Caitlin Clark leading the charge, the Fever are building something special. They aren't just trying to be competitive. They are coming for the top teams in the league, and Bonner is fully on board with that mission. She's not just signing with Indiana. She's becoming part of a movement.
And it's funny because if you're seeing like DeWanna Bonner, if you're seeing like Natasha Howard, on social media, Natasha Howard's posts are getting 100 times more likes, and DeWanna Bonner's being reacted more positively probably than she ever has been in her career.
And the best part? The response to her tweet has been massive. Indiana Fever fans are rallying behind her harder than ever. And the very same people who swore that nobody wanted to play for Indiana, they're suddenly very quiet. Sheryl Swoopes is nowhere to be found.
What it do, peeps? Sheryl Swoopes is been missing. Sheryl Swoopes is MIA. They got a APB out for Sheryl Swoopes. If you see Sheryl Swoopes, she did a lot of talking a few months ago about the Indiana Fever, the locker room environment, how people didn't want to play there, how people wanted to leave.
Now, the only thing left to do is watch the haters scramble to rewrite history. They'll pretend they never said Indiana wasn't a desirable team. They'll act like they weren't trashing Caitlin Clark's impact. But at this point, it's too late. The Indiana Fever have already won the battle off the court. And now, they're gearing up to win on the court too.
That thank you from DeWanna Bonner, being olive branch to us all to focus on the basketball. But I did think it was worth sharing simply because I know a lot of those fans, the new fans, felt rejected and beaten down a lot. And I think this is symbolic.
DeWanna Bonner, Caitlin Clark, and the Fever aren't just building a team. They're rewriting the future of the WNBA. And if the rest of the league isn't paying attention yet, they will be soon. You've probably heard the so-called controversy surrounding the Indiana Fever fanbase, right? The narrative being pushed that their fans are toxic or too intense, and that players are supposedly avoiding the team because of it. Well, let's be real for a second. This storyline has collapsed faster than a bad defensive rotation. And you know who started this mess? Alyssa Thomas. Yeah, Bonner's own wife was out here stirring the pot, claiming that Fever fans were so unbearable that players wanted no part of Indiana.
In my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it, and we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media.
But here's the plot twist. Despite all that noise, star players aren't running away from the Fever. They're running toward them. DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and Sydney Colson didn't just sign with the team. They embraced it. These aren't role players looking for minutes on a struggling franchise. These are battle-tested veterans and high-impact stars who saw all the headlines about a supposedly bad fan base and still said, yeah, I want to be part of that.
No argument that the Fever are a great basketball destination, that Caitlin Clark is a great basketball.
Let's talk about the numbers because, as always, they don't lie. Indiana Fever fan engagement is through the roof. We're talking about sold-out arenas, merchandise flying off the shelves, and social media engagement at an all-time high. This isn't a struggling franchise barely holding on. This is a team that has become the heartbeat of the WNBA. And at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark. She isn't just bringing in new fans. She's transforming casual viewers into diehard supporters.
The Fever fan base, being painted with this broad brushstroke, was always just stupid, really. There's no other word for it, because Caitlin Clark brought more fans to the league than it's ever seen. So many of them are Fever fans, and the new fans that come in outnumber the old fans that were already there. You don't want to tell those people they're unwelcome.
Think about how ridiculous this all sounds. A few years ago, Indiana was written off as an afterthought in the WNBA. Now, they're the hottest ticket in town. It's like judging an entire restaurant based on one bad Yelp review. It just doesn't add up. The truth is, every team has a few bad apples in their fan base. That's just sports. But to act like Indiana's supporters are some kind of outlier, that's just desperate. So what's really happening here? Why are people so eager to attack Fever fans? The answer is simple. Because Indiana is winning. Not just on the court, but in the battle for relevance, attention, and influence. They're no longer an afterthought, and that makes some people uncomfortable. Instead of admitting that Indiana Fever fans are the backbone of something special, the haters would rather spin this weird, baseless narrative that players don't want to play there.
And a lot of fans, I think, felt unwelcome as a result of that, because when you look at every sport and every fan base, there are going to be bad apples. With every group of people, there are. And the larger that group becomes, of course, then the larger the small percentage of bad apples are. But if you've ever followed sports, you see people acting stupid online or even live at games.
And yet, reality tells a different story. If Indiana Fever fans were really that bad, why are top-tier players lining up to sign contracts? Would DeWanna Bonner, a multi-time champion, choose to finish her career in a city where she felt unwanted? Would Natasha Howard, a former Defensive Player of the Year, commit to a team with a rotten culture? The answer is obvious. These players see something that the haters refuse to acknowledge. The WNBA landscape is shifting, and Indiana is at the center of it. A year ago, people laughed at the idea of the Fever being a desirable landing spot. Now, they're scrambling to make sense of how quickly things have changed. Caitlin Clark isn't just a generational talent. She's a walking headline, a sellout machine, and the kind of player who makes franchises relevant overnight.
It is, if you're good and you're playing well, it's great to be a Fever. If you're playing badly, it is the worst place you can be. And if you're a WNBA player, you've got to be able to handle that.
But here's where it gets even more interesting. This isn't just about Clark. Indiana has been building something for years. The Fab Four, Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexi Hull, established a culture of teamwork, grit, and selflessness. That's why big names are flocking to Indiana. DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham. These aren't players chasing a paycheck. They're looking to cement their legacy. Winning teams attract winners. And right now, Indiana is proving that they aren't just a rising team. They're a destination franchise. National TV games, sellout crowds, endorsement deals, and a wave of excitement that the WNBA hasn't seen in years. This is what happens when a franchise starts making noise. It creates opportunities for players to elevate their careers both on and off the court.
No argument that the Fever are a great basketball destination, that Caitlin Clark is a great basketball player, that they have a great fan base. I guess that's ultimately what you're going to see, right? Because so many of those Fever fans, I've seen them, they're the ones watching Unrivaled. They're the ones watching women's college basketball. Others too.
And let's be honest, every player in this league is thinking about more than just their next game. They're thinking about securing their future, building their brand, and making an impact. That's exactly why so many players are choosing Indiana. Not because they're tolerating the fan base, but because they see what's happening and they want to be a part of it.
With Natasha Howard, it was very clear that like that potential for stardom, which she never had in her career, no matter how good she's been, outweighed like any potential like downsides of playing for the Fever. And then for DeWanna Bonner, she had all those connections to Indiana, she had connections to Stephanie White.
So to the haters still pushing the same tired narrative, keep talking. Because while you're busy complaining, the Fever are busy stacking wins. And DeWanna Bonner? She just made it loud and clear. This movement is only getting started.
You know, a lot of people say that Caitlin Clark moves the needle. That is wrong. She is the needle. She dictates. We all know what she's done on the floor. It's history, right? But off the floor, my goodness.
Now, I know what some people are thinking. Isn't this all just hype? But if it is, it might be the most successful marketing campaign in sports history. Because let's be real, the Indiana Fever went from being overlooked to being the most watched team in the league in just one season. And now, even the so-called experts who used to dismiss them are scrambling to understand how it all happened.
And like I've said, there's so many pros to playing for the Indiana Fever. The pros being that you get more attention, you get more endorsements, you get a chance to win, you get fans on the road or away, or at home. You know, all these things come to you when you're playing for the Fever.
But here's the thing. This isn't hype. It's a movement. The Fever aren't just a team anymore, they're a symbol. A statement about what happens when you combine raw talent, a dedicated fan base, and a front office that actually knows what it's doing. This wasn't a fluke. It wasn't luck. It was vision. And now, the rest of the WNBA is being forced to pay attention.
Regardless, so many players decided they were going to go to the Indiana Fever in the offseason, which was the death knell for a lot of those narratives. You know, they weren't traded. Cunningham was traded there, but Natasha Howard signed with the Indiana Fever. And I think more importantly, DeWanna Bonner signing with the Indiana Fever was representative of that. Sydney Colson as well, of course. But Bonner, because she is, in a relationship with Alyssa Thomas, and Alyssa Thomas had said what she said about fans after the playoff loss, it goes to show you that I think hopefully all that stuff has been put in the rear view. And of course, Bonner is a pro.
These players aren't joining Indiana because of some fleeting social media buzz. They're here because they see what's happening. They see the future. And more importantly, they see wins on the horizon. So yeah, maybe in years past, people were clowning the Fever. But now, the joke's on them. Indiana isn't just back. They're leading the charge. And if you blink, you'll miss the revolution happening right in front of your eyes.
Then Sydney Colson, who was on the Aces, and so many of the Aces fans were always, and Colson chooses the Indiana Fever. It really does. I do think the BS is behind us, which is just great.
This isn't just a big moment for Indiana. It's a seismic shift in the entire WNBA. The days of players choosing teams purely based on contracts are fading. Now, they're looking at culture, fan engagement, and legacy. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about becoming a legend.
And then DeWanna Bonner says, yeah, champion, right? Veteran. I choose to go there, despite what was out there, despite the fact that I played for the Connecticut Sun. And that was as heated as it may get. Dejanay Carrington was on her team, tweeting up a storm after every game. And even Alyssa Thomas said what she said.
And let's be real for a second. DeWanna Bonner's move? That wasn't just another free agency signing. That was a statement. She didn't just sign with Indiana, she bet on it. She saw all the drama, the noise, and instead of running away, she ran toward it. And when a champion, a player with rings, accolades, and a reputation for winning, makes a move like that, the entire league takes notice.
It's a lot. It already helped. Knowing that they get to root for Caitlin Clark helps. But seeing Kelsey Mitchell come back and that welcome, she's being celebrated. And we celebrated her too, right? That's how they felt. We celebrated her. People tried to tell us we didn't, but we did. And Aaliyah Boston and the All-Star votes, and Lexi Hull getting the endorsements that she's got. And that was the existing core. And then you bring in the new look Fever, Natasha Howard, a veteran, a winner, says, I choose to go here. Play with Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston. And that says something.
The courage it takes to go against the narrative? Unmatched. We're talking about a player who's been through battles on the court, but decided that the real fight was off the court this time. Now, some might be wondering, okay, but what's the big deal about one player defending a fan base? Well, let me tell you, it's huge. Bonner's stand isn't just about Indiana Fever fans. It's about flipping the script for the entire league. She's forcing players, coaches, and even analysts to rethink the way they talk about teams and their supporters.
Which is just great. That's great for all of those fan bases I just mentioned, right? It should be great. I know the Aces fans have had a tough time, but it should be great for any fan of the game, any fan of the sport, any fan of the WNBA actually growing. Because anybody who was focusing so much of their energy on that, come on. You don't actually love the sport. You weren't actually talking about the game.
But here's where it gets even crazier. Bonner's move isn't just changing Indiana. It's changing the entire WNBA. Remember when the storyline was, nobody wants to play for the Fever? Yeah, that narrative just got posterized. Bonner's signing proves that Indiana isn't some afterthought. It's the place to be. And the ripple effect? Other stars are watching thinking, wait, maybe Indiana is where it's at.
It's not the same situation. You've got a 38-year-old vet, one of the best players in the entire WNBA history, one of the best players in WNBA history, honestly, coming to the Fever. And look, as long as she plays defense and is better than Katie Lou Samuelson, she's on the Katie Lou money, I don't care. As long as she is better than Katie Lou Samuelson, it's fine.
And this goes beyond Indiana. This whole situation is reshaping the conversation around fan culture across the league. Instead of obsessing over a few loud, negative voices, people are finally starting to appreciate the passion and dedication that real fans bring to the WNBA. Imagine what that could do for the league as a whole. shifting the focus from negativity to genuine fan love.
But yeah, it's just a mad out situation. It's mad enough that DeWanna Barnes actually had to come out on Twitter to talk about it. She doesn't even use the app. Again, the last time she tweeted was June, after the Sky fans went berserk at her on social media because of the Alyssa Thomas chokeslam and Jerice.
Bonner's bold stand is also changing how players interact with fans and the media. She's proving that it's okay to speak up, challenge the narrative, and stand by your choices. That's a game changer in a league where athletes are often expected to play it safe and avoid controversy.
Bonner, she's 38 years old. She knows, just turn off Twitter. And that's the thing. I would say Sydney Colson, who has the biggest Twitter fingers in the WNBA, I don't think she takes herself seriously enough to care about any of this stuff. And then the rest of the players don't use this app. So yeah, it should be an interesting season, especially when, if any of Colson, Bonner, or Natasha Howard are good, they'll instantly be one of the most popular players in the W.
And guess what? Other players are paying attention. It's like Bonner opened the floodgates, and now everyone's rethinking how they engage with fans and how they view team culture. This could be the start of a whole new era in the WNBA, all because one player refused to stay silent.
Even without DeWanna Bonner, I would have thought the Fever were one of the favorites to win last year. Even without her. So with her, surely they have to win more games than they did last year. But it's like, you've basically replaced, like last year, the first game was starting Erica Wheeler at the 1, Caitlin at the 2, Katie Lou at the 3, Alyssa Smith and Leah Boston. Like it's just so much better, no matter what.
Picture the domino effect. Players feeling genuinely supported, fans more engaged than ever, and the league riding a wave of excitement. It's like Bonner lit a match. And now, the whole WNBA is on fire with energy. The culture of the league is shifting right in front of us. So, what's next? Is this the end of all the WNBA drama? Or are we just getting started? Let's be honest, with the league growing, evolving, and breaking barriers like never before, this is just the beginning. The WNBA isn't just expanding its fan base, it's evolving into something even bigger, even better. And the best part? We're all here for the ride. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.